So both of you have been in the space for over 10 years, as I mentioned. I'm curious, since you began your career, how has the topic of employee retention changed?
Thank you so much for that. 10 years ago, in the various spaces that I worked in, retention was more looked at as what can we do with the least amount of effort and just real talk here, the least amount of money that help our employees want to stay on, especially those we consider our top talent. I think from that perspective, moving to today, there's really a lot of thoughtful attention paid to what exactly are our employees saying? And again, what are they saying? And are we meeting those needs at the level that the employee needs? I think there's more thoughtful planning on top of that attention being paid. And we really are seeing an uptick in organizations looking to each other, not so much just from a competitive perspective, but really, if this organization is leading when it comes to retention numbers and they're leading when it comes to employee engagement, humbling ourselves as an organization and say, okay, well, what is it exactly that you're doing and how can we tailor that to our organization? I know AAA has done a great deal of that. We continue to do that. But I think more than ever, we're seeing sincere attention paid to what the voice of the employee is and how can we meet it.
Do you, just as a follow-up question to that, why do you think there's been that shift from kind of doing what you needed to do, kind of, we'll call it the bare minimum, although that might not be the most flattering framing, 10 years ago, to now paying like more thoughtful attention to employee retention and making that a priority? Do you think that's driven by employees, or do you think that's driven maybe more from competitive dynamics that you mentioned, or something else?
Oh, it's definitely driven by both, but I would say leading that is the employee. Our more recent generations almost demand that. They look, and I don't mean that in a negative light at all. They really have shown that when organizations do not genuinely pay attention to the voice of the employee, there are other options. We've seen the level of creativity and innovation over recent years that is just personally has blown my mind. And I think organizations can see now that there are generations there who are not necessarily expressing what other generations and people didn't want or need, but they're willing to take the risk and look at different options and ways to make real life match the experience at work. And they want to see their whole selves reflected. And I don't say that to be cliche at all, but it's really important more than ever for people to figure out how to make regular life and the workspace work. And we're just seeing recent generations that are figuring it out and showing organizations they're going to do it regardless. So organizations, to stay competitive, are recognizing the need. That's my perspective.
Yeah, I love that. It's definitely something we've seen as well, particularly Gen Z, really, as you said, demanding learning and development opportunities in order for them to feel invested in their organization and want to stay. Lynita, I'm curious if you share this perspective or if there's anything more that you'd add.
I definitely share the perspective and would echo what Crystal has said in regards to, back in the day, if you will, over 10 years ago, this was kind of a one size fits all, right? We had the initiatives and the efforts to definitely retain employees, but as you look throughout our various careers, it's just that consideration of each individual brings a unique perspective, unique identities, unique intersections, and how are we being considerate of those aspects when creating a space for them to not only want to stay, but also thrive. And so I think Crystal did a very wonderful job in just explaining that, especially as we continue to see diversity increase in focus within companies, we have to adjust the retention initiatives that we're looking to implement and making sure that we're addressing the whole person that comes to work and not just what we think should be what makes them stay. It's really the voice of the employees that needs to be heard and when we're designing retention programs.